the first time. I didn't have the words till they were said by a poet with my thoughts in her head. No, I didn't have the words till they were said by a poet with my thoughts in her head.
You guys can unmute yourself. A round of applause. Thank you, Josie, for the intro.
Thank you for having me.
Alrighty. Okay, there's somebody else who's coming in. So give them a second. Alrighty. Okay. Alrighty. So, hi everyone. My name is Megan. I am the new, if you've been with us before, if you remember Caitlin, Caitlin has moved on to the Northport Historical Society. So she's moved on to be over there. She's the new executive director there. So I have taken over for her as the new events and media director. So again, thank you for all for being here. If I mess up, I apologize because I'm new, but I've been having everything under control. Again, my name is Megan. I'm the new events and media director for the Walt Whitman Birthplace. We are a museum which is located in Huntington, Long Island, New York. We offer tours in person and virtually of the house that Walt Whitman was born 200 years ago. So, and during the event, if you want to donate to the museum, I'll put a link in the chat if you would like to do that. And I'm going to pass it over to George, who's going to introduce our two poets this evening.
To me?
Yes.
To me. Well, thank you, Megan, and welcome to the Walt Whitman Birthplace. Many of the people here who come to events over the years, I know will share my best wishes for you to pick up where Caitlin left off and help us go into the future. A very active program here at the Walt Whitman Birthplace, as you know. And one of the big things that we get to do is to introduce to the Long Island audience, the regional audience, and now through the Zoom, anybody who's on the audience anywhere in the world, because everybody's neighbor now, you know, a nationally known or internationally known poet, paired with somebody who, quote unquote, is a regional poet, comes from this part of the country. We've been doing this our 12th year, and it's evolved and changed over the years. We used to have, different sorts of programming activities. We're live, and we're going to go back to live, I think, in the second half of the season. But for the next two, we're going to, through the summer, we're going to be doing it through Zoom, even though, it could open up. This is the way we programmed it. So that means we've got an opportunity. I see it as an opportunity to bring in people from really far afield. Through Zoom, it's possible to get somebody from Hawaii or from Europe somewhere, in Ireland, like we had somebody from Ireland last year. And we can bring in people from a lot of different parts of the country very easily. It used to be that I used to have, when are you going to be in town? Can we get you into town? Or you're in town, can you drop by? And so it was a real tricky operation. So this is a great opportunity for the Walt Whitman Birthplace and for this whole program, which I think has been well received. We have a good crowd today, a lot of good friends. It's good to see your faces back again. And we're going to do the first of 6 programs today. The first Friday of every month, being March, April, May, and then October, November, December. In May we have Martina Spada. In May we have Diane Frank from California. And I see some people here that are in the audience today who are going to be part of the programming J.R. Turk's going to be leading an open mic in November. Bruce Johnson's going to be reading with us. He's here today. Of course, I should also welcome the board members of the Walt Whitman Birthplace who are here. I see Robert Savino. Hey, Bob, how you doing? Good to see you. And all of you, thank you for being part of this. It's a very singular thing that we do here on Long Island to be able to have this in the ecological niche of poetry, which is a lot of different things happen in poetry on Long Island. And now this, because of the Walt Whitman Birthplace's willingness to let us do this Walking with Whitman series, we have this very special thing that we can offer to each other and share and make part of our world. So I want to thank the Walt Whitman Birthplace for doing it, as I do every year. It's the 12th year. I want to thank the Walt Whitman Birthplace because it didn't used to be that way. I can tell you that once upon a time, the Walt Whitman Birthplace was very iffy about poetry and staging poetry and poetry events in a lot of ways, because it's a complicated operation there. They have to, take care of a building, a historic building that's 150, 200 years old or whatever, when Walt's dad bought it, built it. They have to maintain, the legacy of Walt Whitman and they have a responsibility for doing that. So the functions and the purposes of the Walt Whitman Birthplace are quite complex. And one of those things can be, the promotion of poetry, but it doesn't have to be. So I'm very grateful. And I hope that gets back to the board of directors for their continued commitment to poetry on Long Island. So thanks for that. Now, what better to start off this season of Working with Walt than our two guests today? We went for a great treat. As readers, both of you, I'm sure you've all heard Vicki Iorio, but you haven't all heard Denise Duhamel yet. But when you do, you're going to find that this is just going to be a great, fun, informative, powerful, in-your-face reading. Both of these guys, that's why I wanted to bring them together. Well, of course, they happen to live now within 10 miles of each other in Florida. But that's a grandfather. That's not really critically what's that. You all know Vicki. She's from Long Island and New York City, although she's living in Florida now. And her presentation is something sassy, satirical, fun, empowered, dangerous, and just poetically excellent at what she does. And to match her with Denise Duhamel is going to be a revelation. We're looking forward to seeing how it goes, because this is Denise's forte. I've known her work for many years. And when I started teaching freshmen to comment on, to do critical writing on poetry 14 years ago, they would read this and it was okay. They would do it a little bit. They would do that, it was okay a little bit. They'd read Sharon Olds, they go like, bang, whoa, I can really relate to that. Then they read Denise Duhamel. They read her poetry. They were aghast and they were just like totally taken with her humor, with her wit, and with the wisdom which lies behind the wit. And I think that you'll find that yourself. Lately, Denise has been doing a lot of new things, a lot of new ways. She's doing a lot of pairing of writing with another person, and her work has grown in many ways. I'm not sure what she's going to read to us, but I hope she's going to read us some of her kinky poems. We have before us today one poet who wrote a poem about Bambi, another poet who wrote a poem about Barbie and Ken. So we're in for a treat if they do that material. But whatever they give us, it's going to be fantastic. So I welcome them both. Thank you, Vicki, and thank you, Denise, for being with us today. And I think that the order of business now is this is new. So we're going to have one poem each from the two of them. And then they're going to do their sets individually. To me, that's innovative. I've never been to a poetry reading where the two features do a poem each. But we're going to try that and see how it goes. So here's Vicki with one poem for you.
I want to thank you all for being here. It's nice to see familiar faces. Thank you, George. Thank you, Walt Whitman. Thank you, Denise, for reading with me. I'll start with this one. Why can't James Bond kill Putin? Because James Bond is fiction. After a lot of wine, he seems real. Even the new James Bond, what's his name? Daniel Craig, who looks Russian, is tough enough to take out the moon-faced Putin. You're drunk, you say. Yeah, and so what? But why can't I go to sleep and wake up to Christmas? Putin's been eliminated, government eased or assassinated, the Russian army has retreated. At this point, I wouldn't mind if the president of Mexico invaded Texas, anti-abortion Abbott, take it all back. But I think Mexico is too smart for that. Now, who can I complain to when my fresh manicure chips, when I can't connect to the internet, when my Peloton bike shrieks like a wounded bird? Putin, you've made my perfect life problematic. If I lived in Ukraine, I couldn't leave my cat. When the bombs come, we'll die together under the bed.
You guys can unmute yourself. Good job.
Oh,
No, you're okay, Vicki.
Thank you.
Vicki,
very
that was
much.
fantastic.
And now for our poem from Denise, our introductory poem from Denise.
Great. Thank you, Vicki. That was wonderful. And new, I'm guessing, right? A newish poem? Excellent. Okay. I thought just since I don't know a lot of people here, I thought by way of introduction, I would read this poem, which is called On the occasion of typing my first email on a brand new phone. And you can see my name is Denise. When I sign Denise, autocorrect suggests Denise Richards, which makes my ex-husband Charlie Sheen, which makes me a mother of 3 daughters and sometimes more, as I also volunteer to take care of the twins Charlie fathered with his 3rd wife, Brooke Mueller, while she's in rehab. In my new identity, I'm 10 years younger, a lot skinnier, but I haven't read much. In my new identity, I get breast implants so I can be in Wild Things, for which I become pretty famous because of a sex scene with Neve Campbell in the pool. But after that, my acting goes nowhere, except for bit parts and my now canceled reality show, It's Complicated, which only runs for a year and for which Charlie calls me greedy and vain. Sure, I get to be in the world is not enough, but Entertainment Weekly rates me the worst Bond girl of all time. In my new identity, I still have a sister named Michelle. I'm still French Canadian, raised Roman Catholic. I still get to be a writer, but when I'm Denise Richards, instead of poems, I publish a memoir, The Real Girl Next Door. I'm a New York Times bestseller, but deep down I know it's not because I wield a great sentence. In my new identity, instead of overeating, I get more plastic surgery and pose for Playboy when my marriage heads south and I no longer feel sexy and just want to prove something. In my new identity, my mother has passed, but my father is still alive, going to the millionaire matchmaker to look for new love. Though I'm no genius, I'm generally respected because I don't badmouth anyone, even when I'm on Howard Stern. I repeatedly decline to talk about the restraining order or any of Sheen's public subsequent meltdowns. What's the point? Besides, I need to protect my kids. There aren't many famous Denises, and I wonder why my phone, if it's that smart, doesn't suggest Levertov. When I erase Richards, autocorrect still doesn't recognize who I am. As I try to resign, Samsung asks if I'm sure I'm just a plain old Denise. Might I really mean denies, or maybe demise? Thank you.
Great, thank you so much.
all right. I guess I'll start, right?
I'll introduce you, Vicki, real quick.
I'm very anxious.
Okay, so Vicki Iorio is the author of the poetry collections Poems from the Dirty Couch, Local Gem Press, Not Sorry, Alien Buddha Press, and Chapbooks Send Me a Letter, Dancing Girl Press, and Something Fishy, Finishing Line Press. Her poetry has appeared in numerous print and online journals, including the Painted Bride Quarterly, Rattle, Poets Respond Online, the FemLit magazine, and the American Journal of Poetry. Vicki is currently living in Florida, but her heart is in New York.
It's true. So, okay, I'll just start. What you do when you find out your first friend is a trumper. You've known her since your parents moved to Levittown when you were both babies. GI dads, cheap houses with free televisions, holding hands in strollers, training bikes, bras, hair curlers, smoking cigarettes every Saturday at the Mays department store, trolling for bad boys with pompadours from distant towns, East Meadow, Baldwin, Belmore. As senior citizens, you find each other again on Facebook. Sweet coincidence. You live in the same town in Central Florida. You meet for an early bird special, talk about the joys of Metamucil. You diagnose each other's rashes. Then she drops the bomb. She is a trumper because she is against abortion. Did she forget that you held her hand during hers, that you gave her your summer job money? It was no big deal, just a Saturday morning of cramps, a heating pad afternoon. You freak and raise your voice, Hitler and history repeating itself. The other diners at the Lost Lagoon point at the crazy lady, take videos. You throw money on the table and leave. Burning rubber, you feel like you're having a heart attack. Debate going to the ER. Instead, you choose yoga with your favorite YouTube instructor. Square breathing and CBD gummies, a shitload of wine, a dot of Xanax. Friendship fills your dreams. So this next poem is going to really show how old I am, if you didn't get from the other one. The biography of love. I love Bambi. When a hunter shoots Bambi's mother, I hide under the seat until the movie ends. My mother holds me, whispers she'll never leave. I don't know that love is my mother. I only know her perfume, her red lips, her cigarettes are my home. I am in love with Ricky Nelson's white teeth, Dion's Bronx accent, Chubby Checker's twist, Ponderosa's Little Joe. My mother calls me boy crazy. When the Beatles come, they conquer my American heart. I shut my mother out, finger love the Fab Four in my princess bed. A boy from the city moves into my neighborhood. We cut high school. He shows me how to roll a joint, gives me my first hickey. My mother says he'll take his Kennedy good looks elsewhere. She's right. My broken heart morphs into mono. Mom calls me a slut with the kissing disease. I lose a school year and stay in bed with Joni Mitchell. I meet my husband in college. He never loved himself, so how could he love me? My daughter wants me to find love, signs me up on J-Date, Match, Christian Mingle, gives me some blue pills in the event I find a senior with a tingle. I think I could fall for the Pope. He wouldn't judge my love handles, but I think he is in love with God. My daughter is afraid I will die alone. She thinks she knows what love is. So reading for Walt Whitman, I find the Walt Whitman Birthplace a very sacred place. So I have some poems about Walt Whitman or for Walt. And this one I call Ode to Walt Whitman or Walt Whitman Adjacent. Reading poetry at your birthplace. It's only right to Google you. That's how it's done now, Walt baby. I have learned that we are both natives of Pominac, the Long Island. You had leaves of grass. I have ribbons of the Long Island Expressway. You started the Long Islander News. I had a poem published there. You made a commencement speech at Dartmouth, my daughter's alma mater. Your parents moved the family to Hempstead. That's the town I live in. Seldom at your desk. You were fired from a government job. They would love to fire me from mine, but I am a member of the Kiss My Ass Retirement Club. There's nothing much they can do but roll their bureaucratic eyeballs when I craft poems in my cubicle. Your sexuality was questioned. No one has asked about mine in a long time. I need to wax my facial hair. Let's face it, yours was abundant. I shop at the Walt Whitman Mall. I can't see you outfitted by J. Crew. I will never be half the poet you are, but if this Long Island recognizes me in any way, rename your mall for me, for that is where my debt and spirit be. The next poem is dedicated to my poetry doppelganger, Deborah Hauser. We spent a day at Brooklyn Bridge, and it's about that, and Walt does make an appearance in the poem. Please come drinking with me for Deborah. Let's meet at the southeast corner of High Street. I will watch your witchy shoes step ladylike out of the subway. Let's go to Melville's Liquors, howl like banshees through the aisles, make the watchful proprietor nervous. Let's study the names of wines from exotic places, buy a silvery white from South Africa. Let's go down to Brooklyn Bridge, unpeel pantyhose. The October sun is warm, play in the flood tide. Let's christen this day with an oaky Chardonnay, bottled in a waxed carton, as innocent as mother's milk. Let's raise our skirts, moon the ferry boats, listen for the camera clicks of tourists. Let's get blurry and reimagine the Twin Towers, toast the watchtower's conversion to condos, the bridge traffic, the couples locking in their love on steel cables. Let's spy Walt ruin his boots walking on the riverbank, scratch at his beard while birthing poems, search for a sailor's bar. Let's say a wine prayer for the sandhogs. Reach into my coat pocket. I have the discreet as a tampon flask you gave me. Let's warm up with a blood red Cabernet. The sun is going down. Let's trade our petticoats for mermaid fins. Leave our pumps as a footnote on bruised rocks. Push off the granite and dive into the drink. Well, Walt Whitman, he wrote a poem called I Saw in Louisiana a Live Oak Growing. And this poem resonates to me. He was homesick. He missed his friends. So I wrote this poem. The first time I saw a live oak. After men landed on the moon, my father's job took us to Florida. Our backseat air conditioning was a Scotch-plaid cooler filled with ice. My sister and I each put a leg in the cooler, hers long and slender, mine short and stubby. My father drove with his left hand out of the window. His right hand held a creased map with a red line from Long Island to Cape Canaveral. The first time I saw a live oak was in Georgia. The Spanish moss hanging from the limbs was witch hair. Hansel and Gretel were tangled in the miasma. My sister didn't see the live oak, but the chain gangs in prison stripes, picking up garbage along the highway. 16, hot in the back seat, she leaned out of the car, her lacy rib tickler waving like a flag. My mother pushed her down and rolled up the windows. When we arrived at the Florida border, the toll takers gave us free cups of fresh squeezed orange juice. Ron John billboards followed us along the coast to our new home. In the park across the street from my house, rotting wooden signs designating water fountains for coloreds and whites were hidden under Spanish moss. The water in the fountains was warm and rusty for all. August, I started 6th grade. The live oak outside my school languished like a southern belle. My friends back home were still on summer vacation. Even though I made new friends, I missed them and the hint of cool weather after Labor Day. I never understood how being in the heat of Florida had anything to do with the cool skin of the moon. So during Hurricane Sandy, I lived in the South Shore of Long Island, and my basement was totally in water. I fish in the basement. I came across a line from Emily Dickinson that she wrote about mermaids in the basement. So I'm like, oh shit, I'm stealing this. So here's my poem. A keeper. Because I keep a mermaid in the basement, I wash her delicate sequined pink bra in the bathroom sink, gingerly scrub around her clamshells with a soft toothbrush fresh out of its wrapper. Because I keep a mermaid in the basement, I have not done the work left me by a hurricane. She is a blue flame phosphorescence, illuminating the basement in ways electricity never could. Because I keep a mermaid in the basement, I tell my nosy neighbors I am still waiting for FEMA when they ask about the standing water and the flickering lights. Because I have named the mermaid in my basement Jane Mansfield, I have to rethink my sexuality. Jane flips me her dorsal fin, swims deep, and reads drowned books, learning the language they teach her. I tell her I will buy a wetsuit and take her back to the midnight ocean. So same hurricane, the day after, all you wanted to see were plumbers and electricians. I think if Mick Jagger came, nobody would have cared. And this is about, I had an epiphany that day. Next time around. Because no one needs a poet in a hurricane, I'm coming back as a plumber. Everyone will want a piece of me when I arrive at your destruction in a spotless white panel truck, armed with a shining toolkit. I will snake out your overflow, auger your inner core, unclog your fears. As I crouch in ass-crack stance, replacing your ballcock, my perfect schism, beribboned in a metallic thong, will make you hopeful. After I dredge the basement, remove fish, I will install red-hot nipples on your gas line. Unpeel when I am done, take a hot shower, consider my invoice, my magnum opus, next time around. My mom died about a year ago, and I miss her, and I talk to her every day. So the next two poems are for her. Road trip with my mother's ashes in a business envelope in the glove compartment of my car. Your white turtleneck draped on the passenger seat. Your plaid thermos of tea in the cup holder next to my venti iced cinnamon macchiato. The Beatles' White Album is on. It's a new car, Ma. No more cassettes. I've synced my iPhone with Pandora. We can play anything you want. I'll blast it so you can hear it. I'll sing low so you can't hear it. Karen married a nice boy from college. They got married in the campus chapel. We'll go there before we picnic along the river. At the King Arthur Baking Company, I'll buy flour. I still haven't mastered your brownies. You said the secret is in the timing, knowing my patience is my failure. Later, we'll drive up to the ice cream factory. Remember your best day? The free strawberry ice cream sample was as big as a pint. The strawberries almost whole, ruby red, bursting with seeds. And that's Ben & Jerry's. I don't know if anyone's ever been in Vermont, but it's an awesome place. And they give really good samples. So the next poem is called St. Paulia, which is Latin for African violets. I was being fancy. St. Paulia. My mother's African violets made our southern exposure window a suburban jungle. Deconstructing fish, her busy hands would bury delicate cartilage in the potting soil. The secrets in the bones, she'd whisper to me, her Klingon, while we ate lunch, and I had her all to myself before my sister came home from school. This botanic curtain framed my life through high school. During college, the African violets were gone. Damn aphids, my mother said when I came home for Thanksgiving. Diseased perennials, the death knell of indoor plants for my mother. When we were old and older and lived like gal pals in a garden apartment, I'd hold my mother's hand, rough as the bark of a tree. We'd walk along the paths and admire the apartment's hydrangeas. My mother took out pennies from her pockets and buried them under the plants with the toe of her sneaker and whispered to me, there'll be a change in color come next spring. A cane, and then a walker, then winter. I did not tell her it is science, not secrets, that make things true. So the next poem, I really got inspired by tweets. I like tweets. And some of them are interesting. Topsy-turvy. The tweet said, Bannon indicted, Britney freed. My mother said, her mother said, it's a topsy-turvy world. We're talking more than 100 years of topsy-turvy. Disney's Hunchback of Notre Dame has a song called Topsy-Turvy. My daughter and I sang that song when I drove her to school. Can you even say hunchback, which sounds like humpback, which sounds a little kinky like sperm whale? So much testosterone in the deep blue sea. At the dinner table, when I was young in a topsy-turvy family, and whose wasn't, I could say sperm whale and chicken breast. All other sperms and breasts were verboten. My daughter has scoliosis. She had to wear a brace to school that made her hobble like Scout in her Halloween ham costume. The kids called her a hunchback. I wanted to kill those fuckers. They straightened up when she graduated top of her class and made an FU speech that most of them were too dumb to understand. I take osteoporosis meds so I don't get a dowager's hump. It sounds good to be a dowager, hump and all. I wouldn't mind wearing a tiara while I shop at Trader Joe's. The tweet said Britney is free. They would never try a conservatorship with a male rock star. Can you imagine Mick Jagger under birth control surveillance? Bannon had to surrender his passport, then went back into his hiding hole. His boss is still looking for votes in every pussy he grabs. I stay in the dark and watch Disney movies, except Bambi. So I've been doing a little traveling now that the pandemic is lessening up. And I thought with this experience, I thought I was going to wind up in YouTube, but all right, well, here it is. Mea culpa. After snaking through the Serpentine to check my suitcase, the TSA guard accuses me of having a bomb in my pocket. Boarding pass, her voice so Nazi, I almost wet my pants. A no coffee morning. Finally, we board. I take the wrong seat. The woman I wronged won't take back her window. It's hate from the get-go. She daggers me the whole trip. The Smurf family sits across the aisle from us on the jet. Blue-haired Mama Smurf, Papa Smurf, Kid Smurf, Mickey Mouse bound, even the dad has mouse ears. An announcement is made, no peanut products to be eaten. The Smurf family is allergic. I am allergic to Smurfs. My lunch is a peanut butter protein bar. By now, I need the protein. I sneak it out of my carry-on and snarf it down. Daggers reports me to the flight attendant who tells me there will be consequences. Notes are taken in an official-looking notebook. When the beverage cart comes around, I am ignored. Is there duct tape in the trolley? Will I be detained when we deplane? A baby starts crying. Thank you, baby. The Smurfs complain about the baby. Daggers yells at the Smurfs. Her bosom heaves in anger. Mother of the year, rhinestone stitched on her t-shirt, shines like an interrogation. Motherfucker. We land. The Smurfs start singing the entire Disney catalog. I undo my seatbelt, slouch toward the exit, disguise myself in a goofy ball cap I buy in the terminal. The automatic doors open, even for me, free. I taste the shame of peanuts. And so I mentioned that I had a poem in the Long Island, and this is it. I was very proud of it. Jones Beach, 1969. Skin infused with salt, French fries, copper tone with a hint of vanilla. Our tongues make a soft swirl journey of chocolate custard, bitterness that flowers atop a waffle cone. The Rolling Stones' Mother's Little Helper blasts from transistor radios. There is a war somewhere, but not here. We see the occasional freighter on the horizon, a sighting of sailors in dress whites on the boardwalk. That summer, there is so much to think about. Men on the moon, the Mets, Manson. At Woodstock, we all get skin infections, but being Americans, we have access to antibiotics. God bless the good old USA. Some of us take the red pills, while some of us, like me, pretend to swallow. When school starts, I iron my hair, Joni Mitchell straight, blossom into a hippie, secretly crave the safety of my bedroom and the pictures of Ringo taped on my pink walls. Two more. Because I love Lucy, I told Jana, my boss, I'd buy the Dos Equis. Because Desi Arnaz wrote a book called A Book. Because he came to be Dalton bookseller. Because he wore a Guyabera shirt. Because he sang Babaloo, banging out the rhythms on a conga drum. Because we sold his book. Because he was already blind drunk. Because he didn't finish all the cerveza. Because he threw up in the employee bathroom. Because I volunteered to clean up the vomit. Because Jana took out a 20 from the till to thank me. Because I had a new shiny engagement ring. Because there was leftover beer. because my fiance had a liquid dinner, because there is a new movie out about Lucy and Desi, because I am almost as old as Desi was when he died, because Desi kissed my hand and hoped I would be as happy as he and Lucy were. And thank you. And I'm just going to end with this poem. And it's funny, I read it to someone and they said, oh, well, why are you writing this? Because these people, no one's going to know who these people are like in 5 years. And I said, well, that's good. So you'll see why. Hugh and what? When the government puts me up in a quality inn, you ask me what the project is. If I tell you, I'll have to kill you. We spend every night sexting. You penetrate my deep state. I am drawn to your force field. You see laser beams when we mind fuck. Our memes slow dance to Harvest Moon. We are perfect on paper. Then you go all Joe Rogan on me. You won't get a prick in the arm. You live in fear of becoming a kitchen magnet. You confess your anodes and cathodes beep for Marjorie Taylor Greene with a side of Matt Gaetz. You message me, Hugh Anon. My spell check auto corrects Hugh Anon, hashtag none for me. Thank you very much.
Vicki, make sure you do check the chat. Everybody's giving you praises and everything like that. All right, great job. Really enjoyed all your poems. I really loved the Walt Whitman one. That was really great. All right. I'm gonna introduce Josie. Josie is a singer, songwriter who lives in Huntington. She has released 3 albums of original music. The latest one came out last month and is called Resilience. Josie's music has been heard all over the world and has appeared on American and European folk radio charts. You can listen to Josie's music on YouTube, Spotify, Pandora, and really anywhere that music is streamed. For more information about Josie and her music, you can visit her website, which I will put in the chat. So, Josie, if you like, you can play a song for us.
Sure. Thank you, Megan.
Of course.
Vicki, that was so impressive. You had me laughing, and it was really good. Excellent. Very entertaining. So I live on Long Island, and I live in a kid house right here in Huntington, and this is a love song to my house. Wouldn't waste my money on a fancy car, but I can't resist a fancy guitar. McMansions don't do it for me. My shady front porch is all that I need. Got no use for a Louis Vuitton. My Michael Kors bag has got it going on. Proud to call Long Island my home, where there are hundreds of miles of beach to roam, while I'm living out my American dream in my Sears kit house built in 1933. I don't need to be a millionaire, 'cause everything I want, I've got it right here. We barbecue on weekends, go out every Wednesday night. Sunday down at Connolly's, we play the open mic. Got a good job making ends meet. When your bills are paid, this is the land of the free. At night my spare change goes in a jar. More often than not, I'll spend it at a bar. take our vacations in the good old USA. Sometimes we travel, or in Montauk we stay while we're living out my American dream in my Sears kit house built in 1933. I don't need to be a millionaire, 'cause everything I want, I got it right here. Friends and family, I keep them close to me. We got each other's backs like it's supposed to be. In good times and bad, we lean on each other. Long Island is a place where we call each other brother while we're living out our American dreams in our modest homes built in the mid-century. We don't need to be millionaires, 'cause everything we want, we got it right here. Living out my American dream in my Sears kit house built in 1933. I don't need to be a millionaire, 'cause everything I want, I got it right here. I got it right here. We got everything we need on the island. We got it right here.
That was wonderful. Very cute song. Very, very sweet. I really enjoyed that.
Thank you.
You're welcome. I bet everybody else has enjoyed it too. All right. Thank you, Josie. So now I'm going to introduce Denise. Denise is an NEA winner and Guggenheim Fellow, is a highly popular and well-respected poet who was born in Rhode Island, studied at Sarah Lawrence College, and lives in Hollywood, Florida. She is the author of numerous collections with University of Pittsburgh Press, including Kinky and Queen for a Day and Blowout. In response to her collection Smile, Edward Field says, "More than any poet I know, Denise Duhamel, for all the witty, polished surface of her poems, communicates the ache of human existence." Duhamel has received grants and awards for the NEA, has reserved guest editor of the Best American Poetry 2013, and teaches creative writing and literature at Florida International University.
Thank you, Megan. And thank you, Josie. That was beautiful. I'm really loving the songs. And I want to thank George, of course, for inviting me and pairing me with Vicki, who, I mean, I think we're sister poets. So many things that I'm going to write about are the same things you're writing about. So this is wonderful. And thank you all very much for coming to listen. This first poem is called Folkways, and it's from my latest book called Second Story. Folkways. I see the sea getting closer. I read we'll soon run out of drinking water. I floss the steak out of my teeth. I should be vegan. Even the teenager told me so. She said I had the right sandals and earrings. I step off the plane, look up my carbon footprint. Greenland is melting due in part to my recent Google search. All my dead iPhones, along with scraps of bologna and turkey bones, add to the landfill populated by vultures in some countries, child scavengers in others. I buy South American fruit and North American groceries. Sustainability is a hoax, the article says, but I recycle anyway, cycle instead of drive when I can. Emma evacuates Santa Barbara, wildfire in her rearview mirror, a laptop covered in ash, and a few books in her trunk. I say goodbye to my furniture and clothes whenever I evacuate for yet another hurricane, decide what to bring, what to leave behind. My friend's favorite joke, what is the population of Bombay? Wait a second, let me check my watch. When I was young and naive, I had a foster child from Bangladesh. This was before I knew how much the charity's CEO was making. I was an adjunct in New York City with 3 jobs, but knew I was rich by comparison. I could pretend I was a good person. My sanitized love and concern reflected in the drawings the child sent. I started to volunteer instead at the Catholic Worker, ladling soup and oatmeal into plastic bowls. The homeless smelled like I would have smelled if I didn't have running water or a toothbrush or quarters for the laundromat. Eileen Miles slept outside their New York City apartment with the homeless, but was sure not to use any resources the displaced needed. Miles took their own food so that the truly needy could get first dibs on dumpster bagels. Until you have no toilet paper, you can't imagine how precious it is. No tampons or moisturizer or shampoo. I live in Florida now, where a graying man makes his home on the beach. He is a war vet, my neighbors say, but I am not sure which war. There have been so many. He showers where others simply rinse off sand. He waited out Irma in a shelter while I drove away with friends. Now he sleeps near the restrooms in the park and shuffles down to the surf, takes his morning swim. When he catches me leaving him half a roasted chicken, he says, "Thanks for the delivery." He says maybe his luck is changing. Maybe one day soon the ocean will come to him. Thanks. It's really something reading with Vicki, because I have in second story, I can't read it because it would take too long, but a poem about, it's a terza rima called Terza Irma, and it's about, rebuilding after hurricane and just the devastation and how displaced we can feel by these things, obviously. This next poem is called Climate Crisis 2019, and it has an epigraph from Sir Robert Swan, who writes, "The greatest threat to our planet is the belief that someone else will save it." Climate Crisis 2019. My Uncle Will in his wicker rocking chair, riding the waves. I'm watching him from an almost submerged second-story window. I thought this recurring dream foretold his death, but after we buried him, the dream kept coming. Eventually, I bought a dream dictionary, which said the flood meant I might have pent-up sexual desires. I loved my uncle in a chaste way, so this interpretation made me feel shame, as did the second definition, suggesting my demands were overwhelming, flooding others. Uncle Will was an environmentalist, the first person I knew to get a Vespa in 1970, saying if it was good enough for Gregory Peck and Roman Holiday, it was good enough for him. My uncle thought, even back then, we all should be using solar power. Now the Florida street upon which I live floods even when the sun is shining. The dream's window was telling me I needed to go out into the world and experience more life, though it's risky to travel through flooded streets, not knowing what's under the surface. Not until today did I think to look up uncle, which the dictionary says might point to the powerlessness, considering the say uncle idiom. So maybe the dream foretold not my uncle's death, but a second story, the impending death of the planet. Corporate greed twisting all our arms, hoping we'll admit surrender and defeat. What nags me still is that rocking chair, defined as the wisdom of elders, as comfort and ease, taking us back to when we were sleeping babies, that deep safety, someone else taking care of everything. Thank you, thanks. This next poem I'm going to read is an elegy for my father who died in 2008. And it's called Poker Hands. The day you left us, you almost forgot to wave goodbye as you followed the anesthesiologist to the operating room, scuffing along in non-skid slipper socks, one of the surgical caps on your head. You were going to a sterile and cold place when Mom said, "Wait a minute, what about my kiss?" You came back and then turned and waved goodbye with both hands, hands that could pull out pies from the oven without potholders, hands that could shovel and make snowballs without gloves. All those years of baking, from the freezer to the proof rack to the ovens, made your hands what they were. Your poker hands, which dealt the cards for pitch and 21. You were serious when you played, tapping the table so we'd pay attention. You had nicks and cuts and burns you shrugged off, just like you shrugged off the surgery. We were so sure you would come around, sore, yes, depressed, maybe. We'd read up on all the side effects of the procedure, but you were ready, fearless, man of Bayer and Vicks, the only medicines you really believed in. I know it's too late, but I'm sorry I was a jerk so much of the time. I'm sorry I was such a spoiled brat. You only bought one luxury your whole life, a leather lounge chair, while I wanted a guitar, a new coat like the other girls, brand name jeans, a bike, and money for the movies. I grabbed everything with my weak hands that turn blue in a cold room, ricochet when the faucet runs too hot, hands that get chapped doing simple things like dishes. Now that you are no longer here, sometimes my hands are your hands, when they are empty and still and grateful, when I fold them to pray, the way you did, when I helped someone like you helped me the morning I woke up with a hangover after a high school party. You poured me a glass of orange juice and plucked a pickle from the jar and put it on a saucer. The combination worked, our very own father and daughter dance. Soon after, we went to the airport so I could board my first plane to travel farther than you or mom had ever been. I stooped, having second thoughts, my paisley suitcase suddenly too heavy. Mom told me we could turn around, that I could stay home, and you told Mom, honey, you've got to let her go. After the agent took my ticket, I turned and waved, my pudgy fingers, my purple polish already starting to chip. Then I followed the other travelers to the rest of my life, scuffling along in my sneakers, one of your baseball caps on my head. Thanks. Thank you. And then this is another mirroring Vicki poem, which there's so much serendipity going on, I can't believe it. This is called Howl, and it's written after, of course, Allen Ginsberg's famous Howl, and has some of the scaffolding of Howl. Some of it you'll recognize. Howl. I saw the best minds of my generation, i.e. Fauci, Birx, undermined by Trump, doctors hungry for truth, dragging themselves through inane press conferences at 5, trying to fix the prez's anger. Angels with hip replacements and fashionable scarves, holding up graphs, making predictions, scientific dynamos trying to break through, to give us light. Who, in spite of political tatters and hollow men, sat up zooming in the virtual darkness of cold, hard facts, floating across cable news host desks, contemplating death rates. Who bared their brains to the World Health Organization and saw Monday night riots, angels staggering in Lafayette Square, flashbangs illuminating. Who passed by unimaginative reporters with radiant, cool eyes, pleading with Americans not to drink bleach, tragedy among the non-scholars of pseudoscience. Who were expelled from news conferences by a crazy and obscene know-nothing on the whims of a numbskull. Who cowered in green rooms, undercut, retrieving their speeches from wastebaskets and listening to the terrible thump of Trump through the wall. Who got their words twisted, regurgitated, returning to Joe Scarborough with a plan for keeping nursing home patients and prisoners safer, flattening the curve in New York. Who urged the closing of hotels and theme parks, paradise, church, shopping malls with their mannequins' torsos glowing night after night with dreams of capitalism, now a waking nightmare of alcohol wipes, cock and endless balls, no longer welcome in gentlemen's clubs, strippers shuddering, clouds of debt, no spinning on poles, no dollars, Canadian or American, all the motionless world of highways with no cars. Peter Pans playing solitaire on their iPads, plots and more plots dug up in cemeteries, drunken, safer-at-home moms and dads banging pans from windows and rooftops in honor of first responders who were busy at work, their kids home from school, storefronts boarded up, blinking traffic lights, ambulances, but not much else, sun and moon and tree vibrations in the spring dusks of Minneapolis and Louisville and Buffalo, until George Floyd, until the protests began, the best minds of the next generation chanting, demanding sanity from the worst King America, who is clearly out of his mind. Thanks. And this poem is called Wednesday, April 29th, 1992. The first night of the Rodney King riots, my then boyfriend convinced me to stay home, though I wanted to go to the Nuyorican Poets Cafe, where there was a protest open mic. It could get violent, he said. Because I was somewhat self-actualized, I refrained from calling him a coward. Men, I thought, can be afraid too. I was confused as he seemed so much more political than I was. He could name all the American senators and battle dates that were smudges of scrambled time in my brain. He had lived through a coup in another country. He wasn't willing to join in demonstrations, and earlier in the day predicted the looting that would happen in LA. I am not blaming him, but blaming myself for not going alone, for all the times I've stayed quiet, tucked my neck deep in my collar. The revolution is just around the corner, the guillotine and third estate. My boyfriend and I stayed in playing Scrabble, feasting on vanilla Sara Lee cake. Thank you, thanks. And this is going back, George, you're not gonna believe this, but Kinky, the book, I wrote one, it's my fourth book, but it's kind of my first book because it was the first one that anyone could get that wasn't a tiny, tiny press. But it turned 25 March 1st. So this book is 25 years old, but I wanted to read it because I knew I had a feeling you might mention it. And also because 25 years, that's something to be writing poetry that long. I feel really lucky. So this is about Barbie and Ken, the dolls. Kinky. They decide to exchange heads. Barbie squeezes a small opening under her chin over Ken's bulging neck socket. His wide jawline jostles atop his girlfriend's body, loosely like one of those nodding novelty dogs destined to gaze from the back windows of cars. The two dolls chase each other around the orange country camper, unsure what they'll do when they're within touching distance. Ken wants to feel Barbie's toes between his lips, take off one of her legs and force his whole arm inside her. With only the vaguest suggestion of genitals, all the alluring qualities they possess as fashion dolls up until now have done neither of them much good. But suddenly Barbie is excited, looking at her own body under the weight of Ken's face. He is part circus freak, part thwarted hermaphrodite, and she is imagining she is somebody else, maybe somebody middle class and ordinary, maybe another teenage model being caught in a scandal. The night had begun with Barbie getting angry at finding Ken's blow-up doll folded and stuffed under the couch. He was defensive and ashamed, especially about not even having the breath to inflate her. But after a round of pretend tears, Barbie and Ken vowed to try to make their relationship work. With their good memories as sustaining as good food, they listened to late night radio talk shows, one featuring Dr. Ruth. When all else fails, just hold each other, the small sex therapist crooned. Barbie and Ken on cue groped in the dark, their interchangeable skin glowing, the color of Band-Aids. Then they let themselves go. So Barbie was begging Ken to try on her spandex miniskirt. She showed him how to pivot as though he were on a runway. Ken begged to tie Barbie onto his yellow surfboard and spin her on the kitchen table until she grew dizzy. Anything, anything, they both said to the other's requests, their married desires bubbling from the most unlikely places. Thanks, thank you. I wanted to tell people too, I edited with Dustin Brookshire and a special, what do you call it, edition or issue, a special issue, there's the word, a special issue of Limp Wrist. It's just called Limp Wrist magazine. And there's a whole bunch of Barbie poems on it. It was a special issue of Barbie poems. Anyway, the next generation is really writing some very interesting stuff, and it's all online if anyone's interested. Speaking of like crazy beauty standards and unrealistic, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, I wanted to read this poem called Downsides. And it's for Samantha Brick, who wrote this article called "There Are Downsides to Looking This Pretty, Why Women Hate Me for Being Beautiful." And it was published in the Guardian in April 2nd, 2012. And you can imagine the backlash that she got for writing such an article, including this. I'm going to be part of the backlash. It's called Downsides. Seems I can't go anywhere without some dude trying to get inside my frontal lobe. Just once, I'd like to go to a hotel bar without hearing, "Nice brainstem, can I buy it a drink?" Or, "Did anyone ever tell you your cerebellum could be a model?" Whenever I pass a construction site, the hard hats whistle at my bouncy left and right hemispheres. As I scurry away, I get stuck up neocortex. At work, Mr. Smith ogles my limbic system, and the administrative assistants with the small brains ignore me in the lunchroom. I guess it's true. I flaunt my high IQ. I can be a tease when it comes to anagrams and spatial reasoning. But hey, don't we all just use whatever we have? Unlike most women, I'm actually looking forward to senility, so everyone will stop seeing only my brain and accept me for who I truly am. Thanks. And then this next poem is called "I Love Sex in All Its Forms." And it's a pantoum, but it's a pantoum that cheats. And all these, every line, I swear, of this is from a subject line in an email that went to my spam folder. And people in my spam folder think that, apparently think I'm a straight man who wants to be with them, these ladies. So anyway, these are all, anyway, I went into spam one day and boy, it's fun. I love sex in all its forms. Spam email from Mindy. Hey, big guy, I'm lonely and wet. Being in love, a blessing or a curse. My boner brew will make you a better screw. I just added 3 new naked photos. Being in love, a blessing or a curse. Text me, I guarantee we'll have a blast. I just added 3 new naked photos. Want to hear me talk dirty in my luscious British accent? Text me, I guarantee we'll have a blast. What should I do? I'm married, but only want you. Want to hear me talk dirty in my luscious British accent? Need a hot date with a sexy lady? What should I do? I'm married, but only want you. We don't have to explain ourselves to anyone. Need a hot date with a sexy lady? I'm gorgeous and only 2.8 miles away. We don't have to explain ourselves to anyone. Are you man enough to rock my world? I'm gorgeous and only 2.8 miles away. Here are some other girls you might like. Are you man enough to rock my world? I'll prove to you we're the perfect match. Here are some other girls you might like. Don't forget to leave space in your life for me. I'll prove to you we're the perfect match. Are you available, literally or metaphorically? Don't forget to leave space in your life for me. It's raining men and I need one. Are you available, literally or metaphorically? My boner brew will make you a better screw. It's raining men and I need one. Hey, big guy, I'm lonely and dry. Thanks. Oh, thanks. I just had not been on spam for like, I don't know. I guess I never went into my folder and I was so shocked by what was there. But now I went in today just to see if I had any more poems, but it's all, the IRS is after me. They're not, but you know what I mean? Like these scary IRS spams. Anyway, so here's another pantsuit, which I didn't cheat. I wrote all the lines myself. I didn't take them from anywhere. And it's called Mother's Day Pantsuit. Am I becoming my mother who tells the same story over and over? I don't stop her because she'd be embarrassed, and I'd like to see how the details change as she tells the same story over and over. In one version, my mother slams the phone. I'd like to see how the details change, that her sister, my aunt, apologizes because, after all, she'd slammed the phone on my poor mother who was just trying to be nice. My mother's sister, my aunt, apologizes, but it sounds phony baloney to my poor mother who was just trying to be nice. My aunt spread the rumor that my sister and I sold pot, but I thought it sounded phony baloney, made up by my cousin who was the pothead. My aunt spread the rumor that my sister and I sold pot, so my mother sat us down, trying to get us to confess. My cousin was the pothead. His father, my uncle, always comparing our grades to his. When my mother sat down, trying to get us to confess, my sister and I successfully defended ourselves. My uncle was always comparing our grades to his sons. Why can't you be smart like your true cousins? After my sister and I successfully defended ourselves, my mother felt bad for my cousin, who always heard, why can't you be smart like your true cousins? Maybe my mother offered parenting advice because she felt bad for her nephew, who herded pretty girls around him to make him feel important. Maybe my mother offered parenting advice about the suicide attempt of his latest girlfriend. Pretty girls around me made me feel less important, even though I was a good student. In some stories, the suicide attempt belongs to my cousin, who hoped cannabis would cure his depression. Maybe because we were good students, my sister and I didn't have a lot of dates in high school. Now I hope cannabis gummies will help my neck pain. Pot's stigma in my mother's mind is almost gone. My mother didn't have a lot of dates in high school. She was a no-nonsense girl, the valedictorian of her class. The stigma of a smart girl's potential is now almost gone. Back then, her principal told her she could be a nurse or a teacher, even though my mother was the valedictorian of her class. The year was 1954, and she had only two choices. Her principal told her she could be a nurse or a teacher, and my mother chose nursing because she didn't like kids. The years were 1961 and 1962, and she had only two choices, have my sister and me or go to hell for using birth control. My mother chose nursing because she didn't like kids, but then she had two daughters and loved us. My mother had two girls rather than use birth control. I went on the pill as soon as I could, but my sister had her own two daughters and loved being a mother. My cousin went on to become a successful businessman. I went on the pill as soon as I could, but my sister and I are now in menopause, no chance of more babies. My cousin went on to become a successful businessman who probably forgot all about how he tried to frame us. I am in menopause now, no chance of babies, and my mother asks if I have any regrets. My ex has probably forgotten about how he tried to frame me for the disaster that was our marriage. I'm afraid to ask my mother if she has any regrets, knowing she'll answer differently each time. I am even grateful for the disaster that was my marriage. I tell her I am grateful she had me despite her ambivalence. I answer differently each time. My mother doesn't stop me because I'd be embarrassed. Maybe she is grateful she had me despite her ambivalence. Maybe my mother is becoming me. Thanks. Thank you. And like Vicki, I also lost my mother recently. I've lost my mother over the summer. So I wanted to read just two very new poems. This one is called Two More Purses, and it's after Gertrude Stein, who wrote A Purse. A purse was not green, it was not straw color, it was hardly seen, and it had a use, a long use, and the chain was never missing. It was not misplaced. It showed that it was open. That is all it showed. 2 more purses. When my mother passed, I emptied her white purse, tissue pack and reading glasses, coupons and a dress book. I once lived in the purse inside her, my first pink home, the knotted strap and umbilical cord. When I grew up, I took care of my own purse, its pristine lining, never stretched or stuffed with a fetus. I waxed the buckles, polished the pink clit, the tender button that opened and closed my clutch. I carried pleasure inside me, my lips keeping so many secrets. I tipped my mother's empty purse upside down, its vulnerable silk insides torn. Thanks. Thank you. And this is a poem, a little poem called Inheritance. My sister gives her grandsons the Cracker Barrel gift card my mother never got to use. They buy candy, Smarties, Cowtails, now and later long-lasting chews, then blow kisses up to their Gigi, who now lives beyond the cluttered ceiling in a gloriously retro heaven that smells like a Yankee seaside candle, or maybe pancakes. Thanks. Thank you. And I'll end with this poem. It's called Dear Memory, and thank you again for listening, and thanks for being here. Dear Memory, what have you done with my keys? I blame you, though it's hard to hold a grudge these days, because I usually don't remember why I was angry in the first place. I look at a person, sure she's done me wrong, though the inciting incidents are lost. Former students seem familiar, but their names disperse like cigarette smoke, blowing towards a stool where I once drank myself sick. Now I'm not even sure what city that bar was in. The welcoming pink neon letters, another cloud, as though I am looking at tiny prints without my reading glasses. I was on a pink cloud when I first stopped drinking. In fact, I once looked up at the moon, weeping in gratitude. So there, I do recall something. I was walking across the Brooklyn Bridge in an ex's sweatpants, though I'm not sure anymore of his name or if I ever gave those sweatpants back. I'm usually halfway through a movie on Netflix when I realize I've already seen it, probably in an old-fashioned freestanding theater, perhaps a matinee or midnight screening, perhaps a popcorn bucket on my lap. That is, if I wasn't on some fad diet. Did I take my pain pill or not? I'm drinking water, but not sure I can detect that bad taste all the way back on my tongue. Maybe I have been drinking more water than I thought. Is it time to go to the gynecologist again? The office usually sends me a reminder postcard, but today I'm holding a letter from the breast center saying it's time again for my mammogram. I usually get a prescription from the gynecologist about a month beforehand. This is how it's been these last few years. I wonder if my doctor is retired or dead. I would call him, but I have forgotten his name. It begins with an S, and I think I remember the exit. I look through a stack of business cards I save for moments such as this, but no card for him. I go to take out the recycling just moments after I took out the recycling. I stand at the fridge, its door ajar, a cold light bulb, an idea for a poem, which I've also forgotten, a sublime dream that woke me in the middle of the night, a sublime dream I was sure I'd never forget. Ah, here is my key ring, but this gold one with the big square head, what lock could it possibly open? Thank you. Thanks so much for listening. Thanks.
Denise Duhamel. Put your hands together, Denise. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thanks.
Beautiful work. Thank you. So now we're going to hear one more song from Josie, and then both Vicki and Denise are going to make themselves available for a few minutes for a couple of questions in a Q&A session. Stick around. If you have a question or want to comment to Vicki or to Denise, we'd be glad to hear from you. And it should be very interesting to see what people have to say. So let's hear from Josie Bello for one more song. Thank you.
La 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 la. 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 I like to keep it in the middle. Keep it in the middle ground. It's not that I'm lazy, just that I've been around. The people at work like to talk about each other. Somebody's always a villain. Somebody's always getting burned. I'm a no drama mama. I like to talk about the weather, not looking for excitement. I'm just there to do my job. La 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 la. La 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 la. La 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 la. La 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 la. I met a man at the beach. He seemed to have it all. Said, hey baby, come sail on my yacht. We'll have a ball. He was tall, dark, and handsome. He had a drink in each hand. I said, you're too hot to handle. I'll just stay here on the land. La 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 la. 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 I never like lemonade. I'll take the sun over shade any day. But life keeps throwing me curves. Sometimes I'm hanging by my last nerve. I sing the blues when I'm up. I go upbeat when I'm down. That's how I keep it in the middle. Keep it in the middle ground. La 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 la. 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 I like to keep it in the middle. Keep it in the middle ground. It's not that I'm lazy, just that I've been around. La 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 la. La 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 la. La 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 la. La 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 la. Thank you.
That's a wonderful job, Josie.
Thank you.
All right. Well, it's to me then to open the floor to questions to anybody that has anything they'd like to ask of Vicki or Denise, or any comments. Don't be shy. Just, I think you can unmute yourself, can't they? Can unmute themselves.
You can put your questions in the chat, and I can see that as well. Oh, somebody raised their hands. Oh, Catherine has a question.
Hi, George. Thank you for putting this together tonight, and thank all of you ladies for reminding us how wonderful it is to celebrate women.
Well, it's good to see you from Oklahoma, Catherine. Katie.
Good to be here. We miss you.
Oh, it's just a compliment. You don't have any questions for them?
That's the comments. I appreciated all of it.
Oh, okay, great. Thank you. Thank you for joining us. Questions. I have a question. You know, there's like an interface between high culture and low culture. You know, and you know, I think some people think, well, if they're going to write poetry, they have to write about high subjects, you know, important subjects, not popular culture. But both of you seem to feel very free about writing about elements of popular culture and incorporating them into your poetry. Maybe both of you could comment about how that works for you Is it something you always had, or is it something you worked your way into? Or
what? Do you want to go, Vicki?
And you go.
I thought about this a lot because I remember when I mean, maybe just because Kinky just turned 25 years old, and I remember writing those poems, and you know, editors like, I don't know what you're talking about, or you know, no one's going to know what a Barbie doll is, and you know, which they were wrong, because of course Barbie dolls are still being made, but this kind of high art, low art phenomena for me was, I don't know, I guess like Frank O'Hara, I guess, was the first poet that I read who had like Pepsi and Coke and names of movies, and Lana Turner, right? We Love You, Please Get Up. A whole lot. You know, at the 5 spot. I mean, this idea of bringing in everyday life. So I just felt empowered, I guess, to do so. I got a lot of rejection and flack, and some people still don't like pop culture poetry or think it's undignified. But for me, I think writing about popular culture is a way to critique it and a way to engage it. I mean, we're fighting as poets all the time against language that's co-opted by politics, advertising, you know, tweets, right? I mean, it's just like sound bites. So I think to spend a little time with popular culture is not a bad thing if you're thinking, I don't think there's any imperative to do so if you don't want to, but I think if you're interested in it, or it can help, like the Barbie poems, for example, were a really good vehicle to talk about feminism, capitalism, consumerism, racism. I mean, it was all right there in this doll. So it was sort of for me, fun. And I still like to do it.
Yeah, it's so, you know, you're disarming this powerful thing, which is controlling language and communication to such a large extent by engaging it and turning it upside down. Yeah. Vicki, what about you?
Well, I like to write about things I understand and I'm interested in. And I'm basically a shallow person, and I enjoy popular culture, and that's what I like to read, and that's what I like to
But you both have Lucy poems, but I think your Lucy poems are different in some way. Denise, how does your Lucy poem compare to Vicki's?
I don't know when you said that, I'm like, oh, right. I do have a Lucy poem, but it's actually a Barbie poem, and it's about, it's about the chocolate factory when they're trying to go ahead and, but it was really about Filipino slave labor, but it somehow got Lucy in there. You know, like, so this idea that, you know, they have to, Lucy and Ethel work in that factory, right? Boxing chocolates, or the conveyor belt, and it's really funny, and they're eating the chocolates, and it's fabulous. But you know, how Lucy and Ethel didn't really need to work. They didn't have to go to, you know, so I mean, I just took it in that slant. But I love Lucille Ball, and this whole resurgence. I really liked Vicki, Vicki, that you were able to engage with that, you know, now.
Well, actually, that was a true story.
You met Desi Arnaz?
I worked at the bookstore, and he was selling his book. It was at Garden City, Roosevelt Field. He was blind drunk. And I forgot about the whole thing. And I was sitting in the movie, and I said to my friend, I met Desi Arnaz. And she's like, what? And I told her the story. She goes, well, Deborah have. And she said, well, there's your poem. I'm like, oh, yeah. But this was like 40 years ago, you know, right before.
I wasn't even sure if it was a true story. I love the fact that it's based on a true story.
I usually, you know, don't write truth, you know, sort of bend the truth. But this was like, just came out. I'm like, oh my God, I forgot about it, you know? Yeah. And it triggered it. So it was a gift, I think, you know, to find that in my mind.
Yep. Great.
Other questions? Somebody else got another question. Let's go like this.
Anybody? Josie has a question.
Josie, you have a question?
Yeah, I just want to know, Vicki, did you actually clean up his puke? Was that true?
It was a true story. Yeah.
Oy.
Oh, God.
I should have saved it. eBay. No. Yeah, it was pretty disgusting, but I totally forgot about it. You know, that it's your memory poem. It's like, it just like triggered it. So who knows what else is in there?
Oh, that's great.
Emily Sue.
Hi, thank you both for reading your work. I thoroughly enjoyed both readings. I'm just curious, on the political stuff, when you read out, have you gotten any blowback, especially in Florida?
No, actually, no, I haven't. Where I live, it's fortunately pretty liberal.
Uh-huh.
And I don't care. And I will not be stifled. So, you know, fuck it.
Well, good for you. Okay.
Yeah, I feel that way too. I mean, where I live it's called Hollywood, and it's in Broward County, which is fairly liberal, but it's a lot. I mean, it's surprising. It's kind of like Vicki's poem about the friend. Like all of a sudden you think you know someone and they voted for Trump or whatever. So I think, yeah, I read it once and like some man like screamed at me afterwards, but it wasn't like.
But you know what? That's good, you know? Yeah. Engage in, you know.
Yeah. Sorry.
Yeah, but it's becoming very personal.
Poetry reading is probably going to be like-minded, but not necessarily. So.
Not necessarily. That's why.
Yeah. So I'm sure Vicki and I are on Trump's. If he ever, I don't think he'd get down to poets, but if he ever did, I know we're on the list. So.
But it's getting so like, I'm so sensitive now. Like, don't even, I can't anymore. I'm done. And it shocks me when people have different political views than me. It's like, no, I'm right, you're wrong, especially now. But
yeah,
as my mother would say, you know, just go with it. Like, you know, can't get that upset, but I'm busting.
Yeah. I just think now it's like a time where, I mean, sometimes I am honestly a little bit afraid, but to not speak out would be worse for me. You know, I feel like it's kind of I addressed it kind of in the Rodney King poem. Like there was a time where I think long ago where, political poetry is, blah, blah, I don't know. Is it really poetry? You know, like there was a snobbishness or whatever, or you don't want to just be preaching to the choir, be didactic. And so I think there are times like I use Barbie dolls instead. Like I would always use a different vehicle and go sideways. But I think this cultural moment, I'm like, there's no going sideways. You just have to attack it. I mean,
I don't suppose either of you are worried at all about if some bit of information is ephemeral, you know, or so, I mean, 5 years from now or 20 years from now, people are going to go like, what? Who's Lana Turner? Or they, you know, there's a certain amount of popular cultural reference, which you can gauge it and say, I feel like, you know, people are going to know Barbie 50 years from now. So it's okay, you know, that'll work for a poem. Or do you not care about somebody reading 50 years from now at all?
Well, I used to worry a little bit, like I thought, oh, if the planet survives and there's books and, you know, I mean, like I'm that far gone, like nervous wreck all the time, but, you know, there would be footnotes or whatever. But now I'm like with Google, if Google survives, I teach the Lana Turner poem. None of my students know who Lana Turner is, but they one like, boop, 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 they found her, you know what I mean? So it seems like almost easier now to read poetry with references in it that are unfamiliar because everything.
I found it very revealing what you said about Frank O'Hara, because yes, I mean, there used to be in Times Square that those of you of a certain age remember that sign where there was blowing a smoke ring.
Yeah.
Lucky Strike or whatever it was. Yeah. And, you know, but that to me is something that, you know, the kids will never find that on Google, but they will find, you know, Billie Holiday dying or Miles Davis getting beaten up. You know, those are all O'Hara references.
Absolutely, yeah. And we don't usually think of O'Hara as a political poet necessarily, but he got in there.
For sure. Yeah. More questions? Anybody else?
I think Anthony had a question. Anthony, do you have a question?
Yeah, well, actually, first I want to thank Vicki and Denise. It was such an awesome reading. But can you guys hear me well?
Yeah.
Good. So yeah, it was going back to Florida. So both of you guys are Floridians now. How how does like your memories? Yeah, in your poetry and your memories of Manhattan, of Long Island, of New York, are they now like more relevant or more pertinent? Like, do they affect you more, or do you just kind of move on and, hey, I'm in Florida and I'm, you know?
Well, I think I'm informed by my environment. You know, I wrote a whole chapbook about like living in Florida near the ocean, but New York is my home. So whatever inspires me, it's going to be on the page. And I miss it a lot. But yeah, I mean, there's a poem brewing in my head. I was just envisioning the summer with people at the beach with all the Confederate flags and the trumpers. And so I think I'm going to have to write about that. So I think where I live informs what I'm writing about at the time.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think for me it's like a big like soup or jambalaya or something, because I find that you know, especially like when memory, I mean, so much of my early memories are New York, Rhode Island, where I grew up. I went to college in Boston, you know, so it's all kind of like, I really sometimes can't remember where something happened. And then I was like, I'll see the sign in the background. And I was like, oh yeah, I was there, you know? So yeah, I think Florida is interesting now because of just everything politically and the climate crisis, and so it's terrifying actually. But looking back, you know, Florida, well, Long Island and Sandy, you know, I mean, like it's all kind of,
it doesn't matter who you live.
So,
but Denise, I mean, your purpose in going to Florida was for work. It was, you know, if you've been called to St. Louis or
right, it's just luck of the
Mexico,
draw.
you might have gone to those places.
Correct. Yeah, correct.
So,
I just went for a job.
Yeah.
I needed a job. But I mean, I have great friends there and I like it and so forth. But it wouldn't have been, if I were born like a trust fund baby, I would have lived in New York my whole life. I would have just stayed there. That was my dream.
Yeah.
And sometimes I think maybe I can retire there.
Well, I mean, I know, Vicki, even when you were here on Long Island, you have New York City. You used to go to New York City to connect with your early family experience.
Absolutely, yeah.
Well, my daughter lives in Tribeca, so I have a key. So, so whenever I want, I'm there.
That's great.
Great.
So Anthony, well, you're thinking about this because you got family in Florida, yeah? Were you thinking about retiring?
No. No.
I would never retire.
First, I would have to convince my wife, but I actually first have to convince myself. So no.
I'd retire to Rhode Island and grow cranberries. Yeah. Did you ever work in a cranberry bog when you were little, Denise?
No, but I live near a cranberry. I've been there. Yeah. I worked at Mr. Donut and factories. Wait, the cranberry bog looks more fun, actually.
Oh, okay.
I'm sure it's really hard work, though.
Yeah. Well, you won't know this, Megan, but Northport had cranberry bogs at the turn of the 20th century, down by Crab Meadow. There was, right when you go down in Crab Meadow, where it opens up into like a, into the marshlands. Mm-hmm. On the right-hand side, there was old cranberry bogs, and there's still this. If you walk back in there, you can walk in there. You can still see the configuration of the land. So it's broken up into these little quadrants. So we had cranberry bogs here on Long Island too.
Interesting.
Okay. Any other questions? We've got time for one.
I do have to say, I am wearing a Watch Hill sweatshirt too.
Oh yeah.
Rhode Island, yep.
Well, I see that Michael Lombarda was very thankful, grateful for the show. So, Michael, you have anything you'd like to say?
Yeah, hi, George. I'd like to address this to both, well, to all the performers, Josie, Denise, and Vicki. You really made, I think I mentioned that in the chat, you really made my week. Sometimes I feel isolated from the poetic community, and Zoom helps me break that isolation and encourages me to keep writing. I think attending readings and using Zoom as a bridge to the poetic world is really wonderful. And I hope to attend all your Walt Whitman readings in the future. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you, Michael, for that. I mean, it's really, I've got mixed feelings about, ending Zoom, because this, enables us to just jump into something very easily. You don't have to pack up, get over there, you lose your whole evening or whatever. There's great weather for me. Just got a 10-minute reading every Wednesday night and bang, it's like, even if I've got a million other things to do, I can take 10 minutes. It's just taking a breather and bang, I'm doing a reading. So, I mean, there's really something to be gained and something to be lost with the fact that we're in the Zoom world these days. How do you guys feel about it? How do you feel about I mean, we've Zoomed together before, Denise, I think for Lenny De La Rocca.
Yeah. It was just technology in general, I'm not great at it, but I really grown to love it. And I also, like Michael, was feeling really isolated during the pandemic. I was teaching, but on Zoom, and yeah, it really did help, I think, to just see faces and hear poetry. I also went to a lot of poetry readings that year that I was home alone, and it helps break the isolation and keep you going, for sure.
I love Zoom. Love it.
Okay, I think that we should probably give these guys a break. They've been with us. They've worked really hard. So once again, if we could just go one more round of applause for Vicki Iorio, Denise Duhamel, and Josie Bello. Thank you for Nice, good. I like to hear that.
Great, yeah, it's wonderful.
Oh, yeah.
That's the one thing about Zoom that's hard, because you can't hear the laughter or clapping. So
yeah,
it makes us feel good. Thank you.
All right, so I'm gonna let you guys go. I'm gonna turn it back if Megan has any final thoughts, but I'll just let you know that next month, first Friday of next month, we do have with us Martina Spada, who won the National Book Award, and that book of his, Floaters, is up for some other possible big awards too. So it's going to be a very special experience to have Martina Spada. He's going to be reading with Dennis Gray, who many of you know from Nassau County. He writes a lot of prose, sort of jazz-inspired prose. So it's going to be a very nice show as well. So hope to see all of you there. Megan, any final words?
No, thank you for coming, and I think this went really well for my first Zoom event. So it was really a great job, and I enjoyed it. And thank you for all joining us. So I just saw somebody was from the UK, and that's really cool. So like,
I know.
That
you
really
should read the chats. People like, I'd marry Zoom if I could.
Yeah.
Very funny stuff. So yeah, we do have, somebody came in from Oklahoma. We had somebody from, from the UK tonight. So that's one of the beauties of what we do here with those Zooms. So thank you all for being part of it.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you very much, Vicki, Denise, and Josie. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Thanks, George.